welcome. Welcome to our 5th series of Ask the Expert. Today we are joined by the gorgeous and awesome Rachael Howourth from Momentum Southwest. Welcome, Rachael.
Hello, Lorraine and everybody. Thank you for having me.
And Rachael, just so we can get the show kind of started, it would be really great to hear a little bit about you, kind of who is Rachael, a little bit about your background and what is it that you do? What is it that you specialise in?
Okay, I'll try and make it brief and interesting. I now run a training company called Momentum Southwest, where one of our specialist areas is sales, but we also cover customer service, leadership, communication skills, and a lot of other skills that fit under the banner of personal effectiveness. So like emotional intelligence, problem solving, decision making, all the things that make us effective in our lives and our jobs. We're in our 4th year as a business, so I know I don't look old enough, but I've got a much longer background than that. And all of that time has been spent in sales. So I started work for Trader, the automotive brand, when I was 24. I spent 17 years working for them. When I started there, I was the administration assistant. And that basically meant that I did everybody else's donkey work. You know, I wrote notes for people, I typed things up for people, I made calls for people. I didn't do anything for myself. I was there to just support everybody else. And although I loved it because I like helping people, I didn't have a sales target. I didn't have any customers. And then one day, after about 3 months of doing that role, everybody knew that I'd worked in a car dealership before that. So I used to be the marketing manager in a Vauxhall franchise. And this sales girl at Auto Trader, she was off on maternity leave. And she called in one day and said, I don't want to come back. I don't want my job back. I want to, stay at home. And so I remember seeing my boss go, oh no, what are we going to do? Like, she's got loads of customers and her area, her territory's already, not been doing so well because she's not been around. What are we going to do? And I said, I'll do it. And all I could think about was the fact that she had this really cool company car. And I thought if I did her job, I would get her car. And so they said, okay, well, you might as well. You've worked in a car dealership. You know car language. You know car people. What's the worst that could happen? So I got my hands on this car, which was great. And I thought I'd made it in my career because I suddenly had a company car. But what they also gave me was a list of 52, I think it was, car dealers in the area, and a target of £12,000 a week. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting £12,000 a week. How do I sell £12,000 a week's worth of advertising to people who don't want to buy it? I've got no idea. So I just started going out and building relationships and talking their language and understanding what was going on in their world. And I became quite successful at hitting that £12,000 a week target. I think I got it up to something like 16,000. And after doing that for a year, when my manager left, although I was the last sales rep in the team, I got promoted to her role. And that was when my career really took off, because I then was the field sales manager. That then led to going to work as the telesales manager as well. And then that then led to becoming the general sales manager. So at that point, my target was probably up to something like 2 million a year. And I looked after all the different sales teams. And we had not just Auto Trader, we had Farmers Trader and something called Auto Freeway and Van Trader and Bike Trader, and you name it, there was everything Trader. And I ran all of that for the Southwest. And again, I thought, I've made my career. I don't need to do anything else. This is great. I'll just coast along. I've got what I wanted. Got my corner office with a view. Got a better car. Got a company credit card. I don't need anything else. What I wasn't expecting was that the internet was going crazy in the background and the magazine world was dying, to the point where one day, after I'd been in my dream job for 6 months, I had to make 50 people redundant. terrible, distressing, probably worst day of my career. That everybody was crying. It was awful. Some people had worked for Auto Trader in Totnes for about 30 years. It was a family. It was a place of heritage, and I had to make them all redundant. It was horrible, and I was myself at risk of redundancy as well. And all bar about 10 people left, and the rest of us went into the digital side of Auto Trader, which then just completely grew. At that point, there was something like 1,500 people in the company around the UK. At the point when I left in 2016, we'd reduced that to 800, because obviously it doesn't take as many people to produce an internet site as it does to produce 13 titles, magazines. And by the time I'd left, I'd been promoted into various different jobs, all in sales, all looking after customers. But what started out as my little £12,000 a week target, which scared the life out of me at the time, had turned into £2 million a week. So my target when I left was 100 million in the year. So I had to use my team of 60. I had to train them up, motivate them, engage them, all the things you have to do with the sales team, to go out and look after 13,500 car dealers who didn't want to spend a penny of their money with Auto Trader and extract 100 million quid a year out of them, which was quite a challenge, to say the least. So I've had some pretty hairy sales negotiations. I used to be the cavalry when there was a negotiation that went wrong. So some of the really big dealer groups, we've got some down here, like in Exeter on Marsh Barton. So Pendragon, that's the biggest car dealer group in the country. They've got something like 120 dealerships, or they did when I was close to the numbers. We've got Vospers down here, which to us look big, but in the grand scheme of the country, then they're not that big. So yeah, those negotiations with the big boys, the sort of 50 dealerships and above, those contracts used to be over £1 million a year. And if they went wrong, they would cause a huge dent, obviously, in my budget. And so I would be the cavalry to go and try and get these car dealers to re-sign their contracts. So I've got many a late night negotiation story where it got a little bit heated, shall we say. But I learned a lot. I owe my career to Auto Trader. They've taught me pretty much everything I know. They were very good at training and development, and they were very good at, I've had a number of different exec coaches to help me with my own development. And now I'm very grateful that I've been able to start a successful training company on the back of all the stuff I learnt with them. So that's me. When I said the word negotiation, I could see people going,
That is absolutely fantastic, Rachel. And, I had the privilege and honour of meeting you, and still only virtually. I can't wait to meet you face to face through the Empowerment Group. And you have added so much value in there, sharing your wealth of information. I feel so blessed to have had that opportunity to meet such wonderful people. So I'm going to open it up to the room and everybody on Facebook that's watching in at the moment. So Rachel is here for any of your questions. So who wants to open the room up with a question? Paul.
Hi, Rach.
Hello.
Thank you for that. You've clearly got a lot of experience in the automotive market in terms of marketing and selling and advertising. Clearly, the new world is going to be very, very different for that trade in terms of the showroom, which was the front line sales avenue. Clearly, it's going to need to change. What advice would you give
to a car dealer?
Mm-hmm.
I think the market was already seeing a big shift in some of the major cities, in that they were starting to see pop-up car showrooms. So in the likes of, Lakeside Shopping Centre in London, you'd have an Audi pop-up. And you've got sites like CarWow and now Kazoo, where, you've probably seen the adverts on TV where the car will arrive, a used car will arrive, made all shiny and new, in a van with a red ribbon around it, and the car gets driven out, and you can literally buy a car within about 5 days with finance. I think the car market has changed forever. And I think if I was owning a car dealership now, I would be stripping cost out of that business like there was no tomorrow, because the demand will always be there. You know, we'll always need cars, we'll always need to get around, but actually the way that a car dealership functions, the way that the revenue is shared around is not, I don't think it's commercially viable anymore. I think it's a bit broken. So I don't know, does that answer your
question? No, it's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question, Paul. Over to anyone else with a question for Rachel. John Harvey.
I can work the tech. Rachel, I know that you are the guru of sales. Can you just let all the people on Facebook on this call, if you had to give them one tip, tough, I know it's tough, one tip, vis-a-vis selling.
Yeah, that it's definitely not tough. It's easy and it gets forgotten time and time and time again. And that is, I'm sorry to tell you, you are not important. The customer is number one. That is it. That is it. Outside in thinking, you know, most of the time in sales, people are all caught up with being rejected and being a good pitcher and being a good closer and writing good emails, and none of that matters. It's not about you at all. It's not personal, it's business, and it's about the customer and not about the person selling it.
I heard the expression ego versus service. Get out of your own way. Kind of, yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Any other questions from you guys in the room? Linus.
Hello, Rachel. Thanks.
Hi, Linus.
I just wanted to ask, since you mentioned that, since you mentioned about how you were the cavalry of, during the negotiations, I just wanted to ask if you had any interesting experience to share, because I think it would be very good for me to hear, find out about your experience. Don't give me the craziest or whatever, the most detailed experience you can, because this is one of the best ways to learn, especially since I did a bit of sales last time. I would love to hear how someone with 16 years in the industry, how you negotiated with others as well.
Yeah, good question, Linus. I get asked it quite a lot. I call it the cavalry because quite often it literally would be, help me, like it's all kicking off, you've got to help me. And there was this one day in the Auto Trader office in Manchester is a big high-rise building, and they have 3 floors. And there was this one day when I was on the 3rd of our floors, the highest one, and one of my staff had a car dealer group from Manchester into the office for a meeting to review their contract. And I was in a really important meeting, and laptops up, and in comes the little chat box, Rach, ... help, ... It was like the sort of thing you'd see in a movie, and I was like, what do you need? It was this account manager called Sarah. I said, what do you need, Sarah? And she said, it's all kicking off, ... And I was like, oh God, thinking what is going on 2 floors beneath me. And she just put, you need to come down. They're about to walk out. So I was like, oh no. And I knew they were a really big customer. So I had to break all my now rules of negotiation. So my rules of negotiation are, you got to know your numbers, know your customer, know your stakeholders, anticipate every scenario that could happen, know your walk away point. And I didn't have any of that. I had none of it because I knew who was in the room. I knew the dealership, but I didn't know the deal. I didn't know the number. I didn't know anything. And it was in this room that we used to call the ski lodge because it was all done up like a ski lodge, all very comfy and lovely. We used to put customers in there because it was comfy and lovely. And it had a big sliding door that made a loud noise. Because as I walked in, the cavalry, the door went and made this big noise, and all the customers turned around. There was about 3 of them in the room. And I had to go in and break the deal down into tiny little pieces, find the value, articulate the ROI, and build it back up. And the one bit of sort of real takeaway advice I can give to anyone who's got a negotiation that's a big negotiation like that is to visualize it. One of the things Auto Trader did when we moved into that building, they made all the walls writable. Every single bit of wallpaper was writable. So when I left, it took me about a year to not write on my walls at home, because I was that in the habit of doing it. So if you're in a meeting and you've got an idea, we tried to be creative, you could just pick up a pen and write on the wall. And that was how I got the negotiation over the line, because I wrote it all out on the wall, and then I stood up in front of the customers and said, would I be right in thinking that where we've arrived now, we both want the same things? You want your contract with us because of the return you get, and I want you as a customer. The only problem we've got is we don't know how to get there. Is that fair to say? And they were like, yeah, that is fair to say. So I said, so is it also fair to say that we've just got to sit in this room and drink enough coffee and eat enough biscuits and go for a meal if we have to afterwards to get on the same page? And they were like, yeah, that's fair to say. And after that, it became easy, because the numbers were there, the value was there, we could talk about it, and they stayed customers. And that story, that the way I felt going into that room will live with me forever, because it was literally like going into the unknown. I had no idea what was going to happen. Could have been a lot.
Yeah, and thanks, Rach, because that is it. I think when you hear those typical situations that people have had to face, it makes it real. I think sometimes when you're just reading a book or you attend a training session and it's difficult to relate it to the real world, it doesn't really bring it alive. So Linus, hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions from you guys in the room? Oh, we've got two. Shall I do ladies first? Mandy and then Drew.
Hi, Rachel. So you're selling something just to somebody who really doesn't want to buy and probably doesn't even want you on their forecourt. So when you go in and you've got 30 seconds moment, how did you use to open that conversation?
I would honestly say, if I believed wholeheartedly that somebody didn't want to buy and they didn't need it, I wouldn't even try and sell it. Because I think good sales is about integrity and being with the right prospect in the first place. So to know that somebody is the right prospect, you've got to tick a few boxes. And for me, it's budget, authority, need, and time frame. And if you're stood with somebody who doesn't have the budget, or doesn't have the authority, or the need for the product, or it's not the right time for them, then you've got a bad prospect in the first place. But I learned that later on in my career. So there's a car dealership actually in Torquay, not far down the road from me, where he was a new business prospect for years. He didn't want to come near us. He hated us as a brand. And I remember one day walking into his showroom and seeing him at the back and thinking, oh, this is my one opportunity. Because normally he was nowhere to be seen. You'd never get the owner visible. And I could see him and I thought, I'm having him. This is it. And literally, this is my one moment. And I went up to him. He was called David. I said, David, you have eluded me for years. I have no idea how you've managed to elude me for this long, but well done. And he just looked at me and he went, you've got about 30 seconds. And I said, I probably don't need any longer than that. That's okay. All I want to do is make a meeting to come and sit and tell you how you're going to make more money. And he went, keep talking. And I said, well, it's purely that. I haven't really got anything else to say. I've just met you. I work with all the other Mitsubishi dealers in the area, and we don't work with you. It seems ludicrous that we don't, because people are searching for Mitsubishis by a rate of however many thousand a day, and your stock's not there. So I can tell you how to put it there, and I can even make it cost effective. All you need to do is give me about 20 minutes at a meeting. And he went, okay, fair enough. You've used your 30 seconds well. When do you want to meet? And I was like, oh really? So yeah, I think you've got to choose your prospects wisely, because the better you choose your prospect, the more chance you've got of converting them.
And did you get him as a customer?
Of course I did, Mandy.
Thanks, Mandy, for the question. Drew.
So hi, Rachel. Yeah, my question is about online, obviously, because I spend a lot of time doing digital things. What about sales funnels? What's your view on sales funnels and how these work, and how you're going to get prospects that you've never met, you may never, in fact, meet even? So obviously smaller ticket items, rather than cars or watches and jewelry. What are your top tips on getting people engaged and buying online?
Yeah, good question. I think sales funnels have always existed, like you'd often see sales funnels in a marketing book, and now they exist, with products like ClickFunnel and all the big funneling bits of software. And it's just about, your chances, what are your odds? And the more people you have at the top and the better your conversion opportunities, the more chance you'll get at spilling something out at the end. I think the thing that makes it harder online is the fact that buying decisions are made in the emotional part of your brain and not in the logical part of your brain. And that's why copywriting and content and graphics are so important, because they are the replacement for a meeting where you have to build rapport and you have to build that early relationship and get trust as fast as possible. Face to face, that's easier to tap into that emotional side of the brain. But online, you've got your copywriting and your graphics, and the frequency of your message and the consistency of your message, and obviously things like testimonials, reviews, and credentials that have to do that for you. So I think the people that are really good at writing copy and producing those funnels in the right way, can be very successful at online selling. But a lot of the time, I think I see people put so much effort into getting the big numbers at the top, and they think that success with the big numbers at the top of the funnel means that, revenue success is bound to come, but they kind of mess up the middle bit, and they don't get that conversion overall.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that's absolutely right. It's the emotional bit that's missing without the face to face, and you can do that with, as you say, with smart graphics and well crafted copy. And that's the key. Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew, for the question. John Lewis.
Hi, Rach. Thinking about your car background, I remember that incident in Tiverton. Do you remember when you were talking at the Mid-Devon thing, and I was sitting on the table with a couple of car dealers, and you called them out by name, and they didn't even remember meeting you.
Yeah,
but you knew exactly who they were and where they were from. It's great. But I got a question about something else. It's to do with the relationship between sales and marketing, because you talked about getting the right prospect in front of you. That depends presumably on marketing as much as, at least in your case, you probably knew who all the dealers were. But if you don't know who your suspects or whatever you want to call them are, then what's your view on what marketing should be doing to get those sales prospects?
Yeah, we did, like the automotive market is a finite thing. So it was easy to know we had 82% market share. But, for my business now, I don't know what my market share is, because the audience is not a finite thing. And most of us don't know the size of our market, our true market. So I see marketing as a lead generation department and sales as a conversion department, other than for e-commerce, where you can expect marketing to make you money. What you should do is sales and marketing need to work together. And in most businesses, corporate mainly, they're kept very, very separate. And that for me means it's a little bit broken, because they have to work together. Because the better the lead, the more chance of a conversion. And you'll always get salespeople say, well, the reason I didn't sell it, boss, is it was a rubbish lead. And you'll always get marketing say, well, the reason it didn't convert is because the salesperson's rubbish. And so then they fight with each other. But actually what they should be doing is the basics of mapping out the sales journey from suspect to lifelong loyal customer, and plotting out step by step, how do we convert them through the journey? And traditionally, people will look at conversion rate as one number, just lead to sale. And they'll say, we close 1 in 4, we close 25% of our leads. And actually, true opportunity exists by breaking down the sales journey more into every single milestone. And so it should be, what's your likelihood of going lead to phone call to meeting to proposal to sale? Then you can start to spot where that journey, you know, same as a funnel, although, you know, a funnel for me goes vertical and a journey goes horizontal, but they're the same thing. It's the customer experience. Real opportunity comes with sales and marketing working together on optimizing that journey, because the communication and the touch points from lead to sale are absolutely critical. And it's not all about what the salesperson says. It could be that lovely mailer that marketing pulled together that hits them, you know, 3 days after the face-to-face meeting, that actually gets it over the line. So for me, they've got to work together.
I was going to say, it sounds very much like the sales funnel thing, but I mean, the other, well, the overall funnel, but the thing that concerns me a little bit about some of these people online who you were saying are creating big numbers at the top, which presumably you mean lots of visits or lots of
freebies. They convert like 10,000 people attending our free program. Yeah. And the minute your email address is in that funnel, you get bombarded with stuff that's generally pretty poor.
Or even further back, promoting their Facebook thing or something, but it's just adding to numbers. It's not actually in any kind. The concern for me is a lot of the time they might be generating lots of numbers at the start, but they're not actually hitting the people they want to hit. So the conversion doesn't even matter because they don't even get into the funnel.
I think what businesses should be doing now is thinking very carefully about inbound marketing, because outbound costs a lot of money. You're looking for a needle in a haystack. The fragmented nature of the marketplace means we can spend our marketing budget in so many different places that if you haven't done that piece around understanding my target buyer or the number of target buyers you've got, and understanding what behavior they exhibit when they're shopping, and then intercepting that behavior, that's the easiest lead in the world to convert. Anybody that doesn't convert an inbound lead needs to really check in with their sales skills, because an inbound lead should be a piece of cake. It's the outbound stuff that's really hard and really expensive. But yeah, a lot of people, when I ask them, what does your inbound strategy look like, and they haven't separated inbound and outbound.
It's really, really good points. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Mandy.
I'm always intrigued at the marketing sales journey, sales marketing. It is a journey. So where do you see, if you had to cut off, where do you see marketing ending and sales starting?
If I had to cut it in two?
Well, if you had two people, okay, your job's marketing, your job's sales, because it's such a blurry line, and I think the two do, it's like it's a back and forth. But where do you see that's the end of marketing and this is sales?
Okay. Probably where the relationship with a person begins. So where there's a physical, not necessarily physical, it could be online, but where there's two brains meet and there is a relationship begins. But if I was back in big corporate world and I'm at that point where the relationship begins, I would still be going to marketing partway through that sales journey based on, the average B2B sale is about 20 touch points. I would still be going to marketing for my sales collateral. I would still be going to marketing for evidence and statistics and data. It's for my presenter to help me go out and present myself to the client. And I think where a lot of people get it wrong is that, well, we've got the lead now, marketing's done, they're off trying to get new business. And actually what they should be doing is saying, we've got a lead. We should now be treating that like absolute royalty and loving that lead and nurturing it through the process. Because once you've got that lead, you should really be able to get to a 50% conversion rate and know that 1 in 2 are going to get over the line. But instead what people do is go, oh, we've got the lead. Oh, now let's go back and try and do a bit more mining and get more leads. And then they forget to nurture the one they've got.
Really good answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mandy, for the question. And Paul?
We've talked about marketing and sales, and that the integral part of that is customer service. And you mentioned customer service as being one of your specialisms. I think unless you get that right, all the good work that the sales team and marketing team have done is wasted time. Have you ever experienced poor service yourself and felt the urge to either approach the owner or the company to offer your services? That sort of pretty woman moment.
Do you know what? Yesterday, I had this lady connect with me on LinkedIn. She invited me to connect with her, and I accepted it. She looked like a nice lady, you know, and no reason not to. And literally, less than a minute, in comes a massive email with a huge sales pitch, about 5 different links, trying to sell me this, that, and the other. And I've never done this before, and I probably won't again because it felt a bit mean. But I went to something I'm selling, a sales course I'm selling next week. I made her a 50% discount link, and I went, hello, whatever her name was. You might find in the future that you will have a better likelihood of converting if your approach slightly changes. Have you thought about consultative selling? Here's a VIP link. And she's replied today and said, thank you ever so much for your feedback. Our strategy has worked for years and I don't need any help, but thank you. So that's quite, quite entertaining, but I probably won't do it again. It just felt a bit mean, but the poor lady needed a different approach.
Did you disconnect from her?
No, I didn't. No, I thought it might be quite fun to make friends with her and invite her again one day.
She deserved it. I hate those emails. I disconnect. If I get them, I disconnect. That's it.
It's the worst, isn't it?
Job done.
It goes back to that whole principle that people buy from the people they like. It's that connection, isn't it? Any other questions from the room? Mr. Harvey?
Yeah, on that, what you just said, people buy from people they like, which Rachel and I have discussed long into the night over many an occasion, actually. But I think something else we agree on, Rach, is before you can sell, you need to understand why people buy. And the number of people I have asked that question to, why do people buy? And they go, I have no idea. Or they might go, wants and needs. And I go, no, it's gain pleasure, avoid pain. End of. Only 2 reasons. And then, if you know that, then you can get someone like Rachel to go, now we can help you. I may be being presumptuous. Sorry, Ray.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think the number one thing, I mean, I hear it quite a lot. Business owners will come and say, Rachel, you please come and help us with our team. They're not converting. They're bad negotiators. They're rubbish at selling. Please come and help us. And when I look at their sales pipeline and get the data from the CRM and try and break it down and figure out what's going on, they're not bad closers. They're not bad sellers. They're not bad negotiators at all. They're just not doing enough activity. They're just lazy. They're just not working hard enough. They're just not talking to enough people. And, yes, you need to talk to enough people. And I'll be the first person to say you need to drive up the activity. But that activity's got to be the right activity. And you need permission to play. You can't sell at somebody who doesn't want to play. If you try to, like years ago, it'd be sell me a pen. Somebody would go into features and benefits at a sales job interview. It's excruciatingly embarrassing. And if that's the way you sell, if you try to sell by doing a really good pitch, these days, and probably for the last 10 years, you will fail. Sales is not about pitching. It's about asking questions. And most of the time, they'll do the activity and they'll try really hard to build the relationship. They'll mistake rapport for talking about the weather, and it's not. They will think they're asking good questions and they're asking 2 or 3, and then thinking that gives them permission to pitch. So they'll go into the pitch too early. And some of the reasons why I've been able in the past to sell to car dealers who don't want to buy anything is because I will ask the questions that are uncomfortably going to make them think twice and go, that's a really bloody good question. Like, I haven't thought of the answer to that. And it stretches their perception of, in Auto Trader world, it was how many footfall they could get in the showroom. But the questions are the game changer. If you can get the right questions and you can use those questions to open up a conversation to the point where somebody wants to buy from you, then you haven't got to pitch anything. I hate pitching. I won't pitch. I'd rather not pitch. I would rather ask questions to get somebody to the point where they would say, well, how do I get one of those? How do I start? How can you make that happen for me? And even then I won't pitch. Even then I'll say, so you'd like to do that, would you? Make them say yes. You have to mix open and closed questions to the point where you surface the problem, you get agreement that there is a problem, you then demonstrate that you can solve the problem, and then you make them say, yes, I can see that you can solve my problem. And then you say, great, I'm glad you can see that I can solve the problem. When would you like it solved? And they go, well, in an ideal world, I'd like it solved now. Okay, so you've got a problem. We've agreed you've got one. You need it solved now. How much is the problem worth to you? Is it worth enough to invest in budget or not? Is it a nice to have, or is it causing you issue? Is there an impact of it that's painful? And when you surface suitability, timing, and money, and you get the yes, the sale is easy. Getting the overall pitch done, that's the easy bit. That's just the tick box bit. It's the questions that get overlooked.
I should be the greatest questioner in the world as a coach. so Rachel,
I was genuinely asked to sell a pen on a phone interview. Seriously, years ago.
Yeah,
that took me back to my college days.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
So Rachel, if somebody came to you and said, okay, Rachel, so you are the growth strategist, you are the person that's, people know you, that you can obviously help to grow their business. How will you sort of, I suppose, start up with that conversation with somebody? So if I'm your client and I want to 10 times my current profit or sales, what does that look like, just so people kind of get an idea?
Okay, it starts with the end. So it has to start with, like in coaching, right?
Yeah.
Where do you want to get to? Why do you want to get there? What's it worth? What does it look like? Paint me the picture. And if somebody says, well, I want to grow my business by 50% next year, well then what's that worth? What does that look like? Does that involve headcount? Does it involve new product? Does it involve, are you just giving me a revenue target? How do you get to that? So you've got to know where you're heading, and then you've got to compare that. An accountant would call it a gap analysis. You've got to compare where you're going with where you are now, and look for the journey, look for what's missing. And so I would be taking them, through a strategic process of building up. Strategy for me is vision back. It's not today forward. Today forward is just tweaking a few things on a business plan. Proper strategy is about, where are we going 5 years from now, and how do I work that back? And from a, would you want to pay a business, whether it's me or anybody else, to come in and help you with that? There's got to be an ROI. Like, I will commit a 4 times ROI minimum with every client. And if I don't believe that we can deliver a 4 times ROI, I don't want to work with you. And I will be the first one, if we're halfway through the work, if I don't believe it's there, I'll be the first one to cut the contract. In fact, we don't even do contracts. That is my mantra. We just don't do them. I trust that people vote with their feet. If you're good at what you do, people come. If you're bad, they go. That's as good a contract as I need.
Yeah, no, perfect. It's a bit like that vision and then reverse engineering it. So similar to coaching.
Yeah,
exactly.
Completely. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions for you guys in the room? I'm just going to quickly talk to Facebook as well. So those of you that are watching, we have Rachael Howourth from Momentum Southwest talking all about sales and growth. She is known as the growth strategist. So if there's any questions that you'd really like to know to help you grow your sales, please comment in the box. Otherwise, join us for one of our lives. Linus.
Hi, thanks for sharing again. Rachel, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about, obviously you mentioned, I believe during one of your, experience you shared about earlier, you talk about knowing about your clients' numbers and doing, it seems like there's a lot of research going in? Because you said that you didn't like to go in. You mentioned about how you didn't like to go in blind, or you like to know, you didn't like to know a huge amount about your clients before you speak to them. So I'm just curious as to what kind of research are you looking at? So when you look at the client, what's the kind of preparations and what kind of steps do you take to prepare yourself to speak to the client?
Yeah, good question, Linus. And the answer is different for different parts of my career, in that in my auto trader life, it probably came across that I did a lot of research because we had 82% market share, meaning that most of the sales that went on were account management sales. They were about, the customer has a baseline contract, and our growth strategy was about adding to that, you know, selling them extra services, new product lines, you know, different innovations that we had. So it was an upsell and a cross sell of different products. Whereas now, and I think most of us on this session are more interested in new business rather than account management upsell opportunity. And so the research from an account management point of view, I knew everything about their account. That was our job, to know about how their account performed. Whereas in a new business meeting, a new business sale, I wouldn't do any research really. I would look on the client's website. So I would understand what sector they were in, and I would understand a bit about them. I'd probably look at their LinkedIn profile. But from the point of view of would I even spend more than 10 minutes doing that? I wouldn't. Because if I've got as far as getting the meeting, the person who I need to do the research with is going to be sat right in front of me. And I think the best sales trainer that anybody can ever have is their customer. So if we've got, you know, that opportunity to meet with the customer and ask them questions, that's better than any sales training or any research. It's just that a lot of the time that opportunity is wasted by not going into that finer detail with the customer. So to answer your question, yeah, I probably wouldn't do a huge amount of research. I would do enough to demonstrate to them that I know who they are and what they do, but I would then ask so many questions. You know, for anybody that knows me, you know, I'm a bubbly, you know, chatty person. If I'm in a sales situation, I wouldn't even look like me because I barely speak. You would think that's not even her, you know, like, because I'm asking questions and I'm finding stuff out. So it's different, very different. John, you're waving at me.
Yeah,
Yes.
Would a useful bit of research not be to find out what mutual contacts you have, so that friends or existing customers even who they might know about?
It would, but I don't.
We might refer you to them, or because I've had this where people have contacted. I used to be in IT training. Towards the latter end of it, I was doing dribs and drabs, and people would contact me in a panic. You know, instructor's gone ill next week. Can you teach this? And they didn't know me from Adam, and we'd have a conversation. You could hear that they were sort of nervous about engaging me because they didn't know my background at all. But then we'd both mention somebody that we both knew, and I knew for sure. They went and go and asked that person about me, and they said he's all right, and suddenly the whole tone changed.
Yeah, I rely on, because all of our marketing strategy at Momentum Southwest is inbound. So they research me. I don't need to do them because I don't sit and make loads of outbound calls. I don't send any cold emails. It just doesn't float my boat to do it like that, mainly because I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. I want people to come to us because we are the right place for them to come. Our vision is to be the first choice for training in the Southwest, bar none. And I believe that I'm only going to measure that with sentiment. So it's not about training days. It's not about revenue. It's not about metrics. It's about sentiment and whether or not we've got 5-star Google reviews and whether or not people return and book us again. So if anybody's going to be doing research, they should be doing it on us and not the other way around, because I don't want to be seen as, it's not what we teach. We teach consultative selling, and what I don't want to do is win business on the back of cold calls and emails. Not because it's, you know, I believe there's a place for cold calls and emails. I just don't believe it belongs in my business.
No, I understand. No, I understand about the cold call, but you go out and speak from time to time at various. You do things like this, which is increasing your profile. So if someone contacts you initially, they might not know you very well, but if you were to able to identify that there was someone that they knew who knew you better, that could be helpful, perhaps.
Yeah. I just trust the universe.
Oh, yeah, okay, I understand.
I just think, do good things for good people in good ways, and good things happen. Maybe I've just been indoctrinated in KPIs and CRM systems for 20 years, and I'm rebelling against it, and I just don't want to have that in my life anymore. And if that means that my business scales more slowly, that's fine by me. I'd rather it to scale slowly with integrity than fast without.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rachel. Going back to the point earlier where you talked about, so John Harvey asked the question around the top tip, and you said it's not about you, it's about them. What other advice would you give to people around skills, qualities? What makes a great salesperson from your experience?
Naturally inquisitive people are good salespeople. It is a complete myth that salespeople are extroverts. A lot of extroverts are salespeople, but it is a myth that if you're an introvert that you can't be a good salesperson. Some of the best salespeople, and I mean six-figure salespeople, some of the best I've worked with have been introverts. And that's because introverted people are reflective, and they think, and they genuinely think. Extroverts are pacey, they're quick, they like the sound of their own voice, and they don't listen very well. And so although extroverts are good at getting meetings, when you're in the meeting, it's an introvert that will do the better sales meeting because they're genuinely inquisitive. And I think good salespeople are vulnerable. So they should be prepared to ask the questions that they don't know the answer to, and they should be happy to run the risk of looking silly by asking it, because again, it will come across as genuinely inquisitive. Whereas extroverts, often they will ask the questions that they already know the answers to, because it makes them feel comfortable and it makes them feel intelligent that they've already knew the answer. But yeah, genuinely be inquisitive. And there was a study done in the States a few years ago now, and it's the study that sort of sits behind the Challenger sale. So if you like reading or podcasts, or there's videos on YouTube on it, the Challenger sale is a really interesting approach to sales. And what this study said was, in the B2B buying journey, B2B buyers only reach out to their potential suppliers when they are 58% of the way through their own research journey. And so salespeople have to unpick all that research that might not be accurate and then sort of restart the sale again. So that was interesting in itself, but it then goes on and it did a study into 5 different character traits of salespeople. And the relationship builder is one of them. And again, this study goes on to prove that the relationship builder, although on the face of it is good at building relationships, the better, more successful, more profitable salesperson is the challenger. And I don't mean actually antagonistic, challenging. I mean somebody that's prepared to say, well, why wouldn't you have done anything about that up until this point? What's the impact of that going to be? And how are you going to deal with that? And to actually challenge somebody's mindset, somebody's perception, and somebody's preconceived ideas gets them to think differently. And when we're in B2B, we want to do business with people that are going to make us think differently and give us new perspectives, not someone that's just going to agree with us.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to just hear the same thing over and over again. It's that, we all want to be stimulated and get curious, don't we? So yeah, totally agree with that. Fantastic. Thank you. Rach, did you want to just touch on what you're doing from a business perspective, helping people that are furloughed at the moment?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that would be good. So I think I've made a bit of noise about this already, but, more noise is a good thing, because it's to do with the people who are furloughed. And we've put on a free personal development group for anybody that's furloughed. And I'm kind of thinking that we need to open that out a little bit to people that are at risk of redundancy as well. I know that there's a few people having those conversations with their employer at the moment, which is obviously tough and challenging for them. So we've started a free Facebook group, which is totally private, and it's not, exposed to people that might come and prey on these poor people that, are going through a hard time. The furloughed voice is not being heard at the moment. I think that a lot of the marketplace is talking about the view from an employer's perspective of, how the furlough scheme works, but nobody's really thinking about it from the staff members' point of view. So yeah, we've got about 25 people in this Facebook group and on a mailing list, and we send them newsletters and articles and worksheets and inspirational quotes and just things that they can work with. And every Monday I run a group coaching session with them, helping them sort of talk about their week ahead and what they're finding challenging. We've got a Wednesday wellbeing session. We've done things like time management training, communication skills training, and getting really good feedback from them actually. And they're talking about their communication with their line managers and how it's tough. It's tough. They're worried about how they're going to reintegrate into the workplace, and so we're helping them to position that and get them back into their team as fast as their business is going to allow them to do that. So yes, if anybody on the call, anybody listening on Facebook knows anybody who's furloughed or just in need of that little bit of personal development opportunity, then we've got this free group. So send them my way.
Yeah, fantastic support, Rachel, and well done for pulling that together so quickly, so that there is support out there, because it's definitely needed. You do hear a lot of noise, exactly like you said, where the employees are not getting the support as much as they should. So we literally have about 3 minutes. We can either have one last question, or if Rachel has any last nuggets of information that she can share. So looks like no questions on Facebook. So, Linus, okay.
I'm a bit mindful of the time, but I actually do have quite a few questions. Maybe I can take this with Rachel out of this. But I just wanted to ask, you mentioned about being naturally inquisitive as a salesperson, and I agree that is important. And you also mentioned that when you sat with the customers, you are the one asking them, the questions and asking them, challenging them to see what they can do better, or what exactly it is that they are, why their clients buy from them and stuff like that. So I'm just curious as to do you have a rough guideline or a strategy when you go down and sit with the clients and ask? Do you have specific things that you want to find out, or is it just you ask a question and then afterwards you see how it, and then you just slowly pave the way? So I'm just curious as to what is your thought process behind this, basically.
There is a questioning strategy that we teach, to try and sum it up as quickly as I can. A lot of the time people will do what I call linear questioning. So they'll ask questions that don't relate to each other. So it could be, I don't know, I can't think under pressure. But it could be that they ask a number of questions where question B doesn't relate to question A and question C doesn't relate to A or B. So it's a bit like a Spanish Inquisition. It's, so if I was saying to you, what's your name? Where do you live? How old are you? None of that relates. If I said to you, what's your favorite holiday destination? And you said Barbados, and I said, have you ever been to London? You'd go, did she even hear me? Like, why is she not now asking me about Barbados? Well, what do you like about Barbados? And so the mistake people make with questioning, they go on sales training courses, and a lot of the time sales trainers will go, "Ooh, come up with 10 killer questions. Always have your 10 killer questions so you don't have any silences." And actually that's the worst thing you can do, because if you ask question A and question B and they don't relate, what the customer then believes is that you haven't heard them, you're not listening. Question A's answer needs to give you question A part 1. Question A part 1 needs to lead you to question A part 1, part 2. So you need to do vertical questioning, not linear questioning, if that makes sense. It needs to drill down. I call it stalactites, you know, like the stalactites in like icicles. They're long and they're pointed, and they drill and drill and drill. They grow down to a fine point, and that fine point is where you ask a closed question to get commitment on what you've understood in that drilling down process. So the questioning formula that we teach means that you need to avoid objections through good questioning. So sales objections come in three forms: suitability, timing, and money. And the money could be actually the pounds and pence, or it could be the value. And there's lots of different elements to the suitability, but usually any sales objection fits in one of those three areas. And so to avoid objections, you have to ask questions about all three areas. And the problem being that a lot of people are comfortable asking questions about suitability. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for it? What does it need to look like? They're good at asking about that, but they're not so good at asking about timing or money, because they get excited when they hear in the suitability question that there's a good fit there and that what the customer wants is what you're selling. People get so excited that they try to close the sale too soon, and then the objection they get is a timing or a money objection. And actually, if they'd have not been so excited and said, let me just understand timeframes, let's talk about value and return on investment, if they'd have asked those questions, they would then be able to avoid the objection, if that makes sense. So,
perfect.
Definitely drilling down questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole ethos around be interested to be interesting and probe, you know, get deeper, definitely. Yeah, otherwise it looks like you're totally not listening. Yeah. So thank you so much, Rachel, for your time today. Thank you to all of you in our audience today for asking such amazing questions. And thank you to everyone listening on Facebook. Just to let you know, we have coming up, we've got Claire Wild, who's going to be talking about resilience and embodiment. We also have Stella Collins, who's going to be talking about psychology and neuroscience. And then the following couple of weeks, we're going to be going to 1 day a week. The first one is around submarine leadership. And then the following week is a guy from California, and he's going to be talking all about playful prosperity, if I can say that right. So please keep an eye out for the new events, but put our hands together. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was a wealth of information. You've had lots of great feedback on Facebook saying great advice. So thank you so much. And to get in contact with Rachel, check out Momentum Southwest.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just going to close down on Facebook and stop